Attention, please.
This uploading is only for educational purpose.
No intention to infringe copyrights.
Learning English with subtitles GPITRAL.
Follow us.
Britain has endured its worst battering from the weather this winter since records began.
We've never seen storms on the scale of this, day after day after day.
I just went all cold and shaky and just couldn't stop crying.
As spring approaches, people across the country are counting the cost.
Oh my God.
We don't want a sea view anymore. It's horrible. 5 houses went in the sea that night. People just lost everything.
The floods and gales have changed our coastline and caused widespread destruction to our infrastructure. But the human cost of lost homes and livelihoods is only now starting to dawn on us.
It's going to be a big struggle for everyone to pull through as it is. Some people probably will not.
This is the story of how Britons are picking up the pieces.
That really smells.
What can you salvage? What can you pick up and keep?
But dreading what future winters of extreme weather may bring. This has been a winter of broken records. Record rainfall, record floods, wind speeds that ripped off roofs, and tidal surges that took great bites out of our coastline.
This isn't a 2-minute, 2 weeks, the water's gone, get back to life. This is, how am I going to raise 10, 15, 20,000 pounds or more to put my life back together? And what if it comes back again?
And the question is, can the government protect us from a future of extreme weather? It all started in late October with the storm of St. Jude. A 14-year-old boy who ventured too close to the waves was among the 4 people who died on that first night. It was the first taste of how the country's infrastructure could be plunged into chaos by the power of wind and water. But there was much worse to come. The storms of early December brought a terrifying combination of gale-force winds and high tides, wreaking havoc around the coasts. This was a storm that blasted some of Britain's most vulnerable communities, elderly people living in what had been their dream homes on the coast.
I used to puddle 1 minute, next minute I'd come one in the kitchen, come back out again, and the next thing it was just like a river.
Having a home, a car, lovely garden, from everything to nothing within 15 minutes.
3 months on and still living in temporary accommodation while their homes are rebuilt, you can still hear the fear from that night in their voices.
I'll never forget that. I just went all cold and shaky and just couldn't stop crying for a good hour after that.
It's more difficult at this time of life because when you're younger you can bounce back and everything's for you, but these last years, you see, you know that, well, you've only got a few more years left, and you know, it is a bit of a shock.
The 5th of December was a night that changed lives in the tiny community of Hemsby, perched on the receding sand dunes of the east coast.
Managed to save a sofa and a 3-piece suite, TV and video on it. But then they turned around and said that everybody out.
And then everybody had to get out because
as we shut the patio doors, we actually saw the floor of the kitchen crack and go down.
Yeah.
The Connollys have moved away, along with 5 other families that used to live on the front line with the sea.
We don't want a sea view anymore. It's horrible. It's too much sea.
Angela and Tom Lewis now live with the fear that their home will be next. When they sank all of their life savings into this house 11 years ago, they were told they had 50 years before they might be in danger from the sea.
5 houses went in the sea that night, and just people just lost everything. The waves were horrendous. We're way away from the beach at the moment. The waves were actually shaking the floorboards in my house. It's horrible to think that the view that you've got out there is the view that's going to take our house one day.
I don't.
It will.
No.
You can't bury your head in the sand forever. It's going to happen. It may not in your lifetime. My husband's ill. We don't know how long he possibly will have. I don't know how long my house will have. And every day I sit here and worry what's going to happen. I don't need the added stress of not knowing how long I'm going to have a home for. I just want to go to bed at night knowing that I'm safe, knowing that my husband's safe. Just say to David Cameron, will you come down here, David? You come and have a look and see our plight, and then you find it in your heart and in your budget to save our homes, our businesses, and save our community. He won't, because he hasn't got anything to say to us. We were abandoned that night, and basically we've been abandoned ever since.
This is Moorland in Somerset. People here were woken in the dead of night to be told that the flood defences had failed. Many more were forced to abandon their homes, saving as much as they could.
We went to bed and we stayed in our spare room, obviously, because downstairs the water was a foot under already. But we woke up at 2 o'clock and the water is 3 feet under, literally the whole of our cottage from one end to the other. I'm living like a refugee at the moment, out of 5 bags. I have no idea where we're going to go. Hopefully somebody will give us somewhere to stay.
Weeks on, and the villages here are still abandoned. A police roadblock protects the empty houses.
No, look at it.
Maria and her husband Philip have come back for the first time to see what the floodwaters have left behind.
It's worse than I thought. Oh, the smell is absolutely stinking.
This was the couple's dream home, where they'd hoped to spend their retirement.
Give me strength, God.
They'd only just finished it after 4 years of work when the rain started falling.
Every single penny's been put in this house, and look at it now. We don't have that kind of money to put this place back to normal. We just don't. And now we're having problem with our insurance.
The couple still don't know if they'll get anything from their insurance company.
They messed us around for 5 weeks. Their first option was to find a way out of paying and sent us a letter of avoidance on the fact that we have a drain outside and the main drain within the 250 metres, which we didn't declare. It's not a watercourse, it's a drain. And that we were in a floodplain. You have to go through due process and the complaints procedure, and you have to wait 20 days and 40 days to get a decision of whether or not they're going to pay out.
Inside and out, the scale of the damage is obvious.
It was as high as that, wasn't it? The radio and those glasses, they're all underwater.
Yeah. Yeah, it came a foot above 6 inches above the worktop.
Maria and Philip don't know when they'll be able to come back, or if they'll ever feel safe in their home again.
I don't call this home anymore.
No, it doesn't feel like that at the moment, that's for sure.
No, it's just horrible.
For many people, the extreme weather this winter has brought devastation and misery. But for some, it's been a story of hope and survival against the odds.
It was like a tornado just ripped through.
On the night of February the 4th, the south of Britain was hit by the worst storm in decades. That night, the railway line at Dawlish was destroyed.
That weather we had on the 4th, it was the worst weather I've ever experienced.
In Cornwall, the storms wrecked coastal defences and brought down trees and power lines. But it was also the night that Leanne Keast went into labour, 5 weeks early. Because the baby was premature, she had to get to hospital at Trelisk near Truro.
It was like a bomb site. As you were looking, there was just bits of branches everywhere, flooding. As we were going over them, I could feel the contractions every time. It was like this, it was another contraction. But I was more worried, because my husband's a bit of a nervy driver anyway. I was more worried about him crashing. So I was sitting in the passenger seat going, it doesn't hurt, it doesn't hurt, it doesn't hurt, it doesn't hurt. Just so I didn't panic him. It did, it really did.
They were still 20 miles away, and the contractions were getting worse. Eventually, they stopped at a petrol station to call an ambulance.
The first response emergency paramedic arrived. I didn't even say hello to him. I just said to him, I said, you've got gas and air. And I think I lost all inhibitions. The first puff of gas and air, I decided that I was going to deliver there and then. I took my trousers off, took my boots off, threw them all in the passenger footwell and put my feet up on the dashboard. And I just felt a huge push, and I pushed and he flew out onto the seat. And my husband's response was, what on earth is that? We arrived at Trelisk like celebrities, didn't we? Because they were expecting to prep a delivery room, and we arrived with him.
For Leanne and her family, baby Archie is the reason they'll never forget that night. But this winter has changed lives across the country. As people battled storms and floods, communities were forced to work together, and local heroes emerged.
We are doing this as a community. Racebury will not go under.
Coming up,
I could never have told you I was going to stand and do what I did. It was so unplanned.
What will it take for you to understand we are seriously in need?
the woman who became the face of the floods.